Welcome, everyone. I'm so happy to have with us today Chonteau McElveen. You can find her at her website, chonteau.com, and that's chonteau.com. You'll also see that. I'll provide the link to her website in the email that accompanies this, this link to watch this conversation. Chonteau is an herbalist and an herbalism teacher. She is a retreat leader. She has a former career in social work and mental health. She's also a coach and a shamanic mentor. I happen to know she has a retreat coming up and probably has spots open for mentoring of various types. So make sure to go to her website and connect with her if you feel moved. I asked Chonteau to be in conversation with me today because I know that she and I really care in a lot of the same ways about our connection to nature and mentoring other people in that. And I just felt like she and I could have a worthwhile conversation today that we would want to share. So thank you so much for being here, Chonteau.
Thank you. I'm really excited.
Oh, great. If there's anything you want to add to your bio or anything preliminary that you want to say, go ahead, or just jump into that question we talked about, which is, please tell us about what's going on for you right now in your connection to the natural world and your own practices.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Shara. No, I really don't want to add anything. You captured everything beautifully as to what I'm doing right now and just who I am and what I'm all about. I will add that one of my biggest additions I've added to my service is the shamanic mentoring. And that actually came from working with some different herbal students. So I just found that some of the herbal students that I was working with, they really wanted to have a more deeper experience in understanding how their connection with their clients and their connection with the herbs was happening. And I felt like the best way to do that was to offer that mentorship and that deep soul work that I feel like sometimes in the herbal programs, that's missing. We tend to focus a lot on the memorization of the constituents of the herbs and understanding, the energies and the movements, but we don't spend a lot of time about how much those plants are working with us in our own field. And the clients that show up to us that we're working with as herbalists and kind of these natural healers, I feel like a lot of times in those herbal programs, it misses that connection between the client and the practitioner and the herb itself. So that was one of the reasons why the shamanic mentorship or the shamanic supervision has shown up to capture that piece that I feel like is missing in some of those other programs. And that's very, very near and dear to my heart. So that's one of the things that I'm up to right now. The other thing I'm up to right now is really doing my own very deep soul work, which is leading me more outside, I have found, because whenever I go deep into my own soul understanding and my own emotional work, I tend to be drawn to the different plants and trees in my own garden. I want to spend lots of time in nature, lots of time in nature preserves, just observing and connecting. I almost feel like I'm the roots of trees, and I just want to keep going deeper and deeper and deeper into that earth for comfort, for security, for support, and I feel like that's what nature does for me, and I love it. And that is my draw to nature, is how much the natural world supports my own process in going deeper, and then of course, just like I love the tree analogy, expanding out. So that's something that's up for me right now too, is just my own work, which is different for spring. Usually in spring I'm expanding, I'm ready to kind of shoot through the earth like the nature is, but for this time around, the spring is calling me to do some much deeper kind of winter work.
That's so interesting. I've been in the same place. And I mean, I have been able to go out and do some very active gardening and mulching and planting and things like that. But for the most part, I'm in a much quieter kind of listening, going deep phase. And it does seem a little bit out of sync with the season. But I mean, I loved what you said about the tree roots, because they're there no matter what the season. So in a certain way, we're completely in sync also.
Yes. So I found that to be quite interesting. And here in Florida, we had a much cooler spring than I think we've had in.
Oh, here too.
It was really, really uncharacteristic for us to be in the 70s at night in April. We're usually like sweating, and we're way into the 80s and 90s this time of year, and that was interesting.
Here too. I've lived outside of Philadelphia for 17 years, and I've never worn my heavy wool sweater on May 17th like I did yesterday. It was 55 degrees.
Wow.
And I'm not complaining because I don't like the heat, so it's fine with me. And it's an astonishingly cool spring. You know, I was thinking too, spring is also a gestation season, right? For a lot of plants. I mean, they're getting ready to fully come forth, and you know, birds are taking care of their nests and their eggs, and a lot of mammals are gestating. So we think of spring as just like the big expansive growth, but it's also that quieter growth. Yes,
that is so true. And so that's definitely where I'm at. I'm still in that gestation period, it feels, and just doing some deep inner work. So that's been really, really positive for me. The other thing that's showing up for me too is the Herbal Academy, which I have shifted quite a bit in my consciousness. And again, it started out a couple years ago as a way to provide information and a deep connection with plants and with nature. But this year, I'm really being more deliberate in my message about how this is not a traditional herbal program where you're just going to be learning about how to make a tincture or how to make a infusion or how to make a syrup.
Right, which is just the head aspect, right? Yeah. That's the intellectual, the knowledge, which is vital. But it's
absolutely very good information for sure. But it was important that I was very conscious and deliberate in the message that this is about what the plants are going to be teaching you about yourself, and using nature as a way to explore, not just what I often say, not just kind of rape and get, but this exchange. And that was very scary to put that out there. I have to be honest. I almost kind of was like, oh, maybe I should just kind of gloss over it, but it felt right to just be very true to who I am and my way of sharing about plants and about our edibles, as it being much more of a relationship and that exchange that happens between us, and we're all one. So even though I say us and them, there is no us and them. It's just kind of all of us together. So yeah, I'm really happy and proud that I was able to make that full shift and be honest with myself, which meant, for those people who really resonate in that way.
I really honor you for that. I feel like more and more people are looking for ways to engage in their own development and their service and with the natural world.
Yeah.
Do account for the fact that we're rational beings, but also bring in the heart and the spirit. And so I think I honor you for offering that. It sounds really important to me.
Yeah, it is very important. I did a little mini, just a little mini course, little mini web classes. And one of the practices that I teach in that is about breaking down that wall of green. And I say that because I was just outside yesterday and I was kind of feeling just kind of low and just, in my own healing space. And I went outside into my garden and I just began to look around at what's growing there. And it's not a huge garden. My garden is really small, in my opinion. But I just began to look at the elder tree that I have that's still blooming. And there's some basil, some basil, and I have different types of basil. But I just began to kind of break down that wall of green. I saw all these textures, and I found myself getting lost in the little white flower of the elder and how it kind of scattered on the ground, and how this basil plant is beginning to bloom in the pink flowers. So what it did for me was it brought me back to the moment. Mm-hmm. It brought me back from in my head of the past issues or in the worry of the future. It brought me to, wow, look at how amazing this leaf is shaped, and made me want to smell it. It made me want to touch it. And that's how nature heals us. And that's how she supports us therapeutically, I feel, is through that connection of bringing us back to that mindful, in the moment, this is what's going on right now, and engage with me. Be enchanted by my stems and by my colors, and learn about yourself in this moment. So,
is that usually where you begin? Do you find? I mean, do you usually begin with the sensory perception, which then carries you onward? And is that what you recommend to people?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend starting with the senses. Whether it's the eyes that start first, usually it's for me, it's through the eyes, and then it's through my touch, and then it's through smell. But for some people, they go straight to touching, and they just want to, touch everything, and they feel all the different textures and the smoothness. And so I would definitely recommend starting out with your senses first, and even having a journal in hand. That I love drawing. I'll have a little colored pencils in my backpack. And so whenever I want to pull out my journal and my colored pencils, I will. And I'll actually draw, the outlines of the leaf. I'll draw the colors, and I'll just sketch a little something. And again, that just kind of brings me back from wherever I'm at in my mind, that it just kind of brings me to the moment of right now. So yeah, I would definitely recommend starting with the senses. And then it goes into your emotions, because then I look at, okay, now what's showing up through my emotional field? Mm-hmm. Am I feeling happy? Am I feeling sad? Am I feeling, what emotions are showing up as a result of me being in this space? Okay. I can then, for some of my students and even myself, we'll take it one step further, and we'll connect with, well, what plant are you sitting in front of? Mm-hmm. And then that becomes the lesson of the energy of that particular energy of that plant, of that tree.
Right. And part of that too, isn't it, is being open to where your heart is guiding you in your outdoor space, right? Yeah. I'll notice sometimes I see, I should pull that grass out of the garden bed. So this is very kind of rational, maybe domineering stewardship type of thing. Yeah. But if you approach in a different way from your heart-centered awareness, you discover, flowers blooming, as you mentioned, your elder flowers. I noticed some flowers in my garden today that I wouldn't have noticed from that rational mindset. They were doing fine. They didn't need anything from me. So once I got into the heart space, I was just so not only in awe of them, but then I noticed I was drawn to a certain plant. And I think a lot of us forget to do that, or we don't realize that we have that capacity, because it's all about, what would I like to plant next year? Or what kind of yard work is needed? Or how are the species faring in this park? And that's all fine, but it's really time maybe for us to cultivate this other capacity we have, which is to be led by our heart's inclinations.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. To be led through our intuition, that's our heart space, and kind of moving out of our head. I'll never forget a great elder that I connect with, Kwame Sunhorse. He says it's the journey from your head to your heart. Mm-hmm. And so we're all making this journey from our head to our heart. And definitely what you were just describing, it's that journey from getting out of my head of, oh, I have to plant this here, or does this look right, or, you know, all these different attributes that we have to figure out within our mind. No, just stick it there. Just follow our heart. And if our heart says, yeah, that's a good spot, plant it and watch her grow.
And then the next step is to ask the plant, right? That's the other level that I've really enjoyed experimenting with is there's the rational assessment, then there's ask your heart. And I think that goes into what happens when you ask the plant.
Yes.
What it needs or what it wants or what it has to offer you or where it wants to be planted.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, I went to a plant sale this weekend, the annual herb festival every spring, and I bought some different plants, and I have two shishu plants, and I just kind of put them out. It's a type of basil. I put them out into the garden, and they're still in their pots right now. And I just kind of have them sitting there, and I'm kind of waiting for them to share with me where they want to go and where they want to be a part of the community that I have there. So I'm just kind of waiting, and every day I kind of go out there and I kind of sit and I kind of ask, are you gonna let me know where you want to be? And it's just kind of that tuning into your heart space and tuning into that little voice that speaks to you. And I know that I may not actually hear anything. For some people, they may not hear it, but they're going to have that feeling. Right. They're going to, it's just going to be very, very organic. And it's like, oh, you know what? This is a really great space. And I know it would have come from that energy and spirit of the plant because I asked in the beginning, you let me know where you want me to be. Right. And I just trust that just through that conversation and that asking, right, that it's going to show up.
And it's that openness to the subtle signals, right? Some people might hear something, but I think for a lot of us, it's either a feeling of expansion or contraction or a feeling of well-being or a feeling of unease. And if you're purely operating in your rational faculty, then that means nothing. It means you're worried about your errands later, right? You have that unease. But if you're paying attention at that more heart-centered or intuitive level, and you're working with the plant, the sense of unease means, oh, this isn't the right placement. So it is so subtle. And I think a lot of us are practicing what it's like to be in tune with that kind of awareness.
Yes, and that even goes along with when you're picking out your different plants. If you're like me, I don't necessarily grow my plants from seeds. Mm-hmm. I go and get my starter plants from my little trusted herb garden, but she has 100 plants. Mm-hmm. And so it's really just a matter of just walking among them. I'm kind of doing this with my hand because I kind of run my hand across the very tops of them, and I just let them kind of speak out to me of what is wanting to come home. What is wanting to be shared? What energy is wanting to be included in my community at home? And that's a really fun process because I don't necessarily always focus on, okay, now what don't I have and what do I need? Again, that's in our head. Through the heart space, it's just, who and what wants to come home? Mm-hmm. And maybe the same identical species that I have at home. But, just like all of us brothers and sisters, we're all different.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Beautiful, really beautiful. What are you hearing from your students as you open your work into this kind of being more open about the deeper levels or the additional levels beyond the rational approach? How's that going for people?
It's a mixture, and it's all about what we're ready for and where what we're ready for. So there's a good portion of my students that are really excited about learning, about tuning more in and not tuning out, right? And then there's another, small percentage of my students who would rather prefer just to kind of learn about the information and the strict knowledge, I'll say. And that's good because they're meeting their own needs, which is what I teach them. I teach them to tune in and ask themselves what is going to serve them best.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that I have a group that's like, you know what? Thank you. I've gotten what I've needed. And then I have another group that's like, oh, yes, we definitely want to go deeper into this because this is where I want my practice to go.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I love about just the holistic practices in general, is that every person has their own unique bead that they bring to this necklace. And no bead is better or greater than the other, but all the beads together make an amazing necklace, and it's needed. So I'm excited to hear both. It feels good. It makes me feel that I'm meeting a need that is out there, and I'm a part of that process.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so some are they're scared, which rightfully so. It's a journey inward. Yeah. And there is lots of stuff that kind of has shown up over this past year in several of my students' lives that they had not anticipated. And I said, well, you know, that's what happens when you begin to explore who you really are. And when you make that connection and you allow nature to teach you about yourself, there are going to be some things that show up in your life that are wanting more attention.
Yeah.
So we get to do that together, and that's fun as well. So yeah, it's kind of a combination of things, but for the most part, there's been excitement and there's been a lot of interest. And when they're ready, I know, others will show up as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you feel like is next for your relationship with the natural world or planet Earth? And what do you hope is next for humanity and the natural world and planet Earth?
Yeah. So for me, I feel what's next is, I almost want to say to widen my family in a way. And what I think about is I think about the root system. And for whatever reason, I just think about how the root system stretches across the globe. And so I'm thinking of that movie, The Avatar, I think it was the movie where they had the big tree and they had the roots underneath, and the connection, the connectivity with everyone. So for me, it's about connecting with people across the globe through the root system. Whether I know that I'm connecting with them or whether I'm conscious in my mind that I'm connecting with them doesn't matter, but that within my heart, I know that I'm connecting with all my brothers and sisters around the globe through this root system. So whenever I'm sitting on the earth or whenever I'm working within my garden and I'm in the earth, I know that my essence in energy is going out and thus also coming in. And for me, that's a really cool way to spread love and to receive love. So that's very important to me. And so then when I think about our connection planetary wise, I think of, again, how nature teaches us about community and working together and connection. And I just think that that's really important that we get that, that we get about our connectivity, that we understand our communities, and we use nature to help us understand how we can work together and we can all come together for the greater good. That is my intent and hope of how we allow nature to feed us and to fuel us, is about through our connectivity.
That's beautiful. I feel like I want to add to what you just said for anyone who hasn't yet come upon some of this new research, that there's scientific evidence right now that's so compelling, related directly to what you were saying.
Wow.
And scientists are looking more and more at root networks and the mycelium, mycorrhizal fungi networks that are in the roots. They're finding that, in any given tree community, there is all kinds of communication and even nutrient sharing going on underground I think they have even found that trees of different species are sharing nutrients with one another. I'm not positive about that, but
Yeah.
you know what you just described from the kind of the heart or the spiritual, the community angle
Mm-hmm.
is so true. And we're finally starting to figure out that even like chemically, that's actually what trees are doing. And it's
Yeah.
so inspiring to me.
Yeah.
It's actually deeply touching and moving to me to know that there are levels of community and sharing and communication among plants that are just completely amazing us.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Amazing.
Yeah. I was just thinking too that, the coaching work that I do is very different than the herbal studies that I do. However, I find that nature gives me the vocabulary
Yeah.
to work with my clients. And that is how I bring nature inside.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm always talking about the seasons. I'm always talking about this network that I'm always using the language of nature into my sessions as a way of explaining and helping people understand themselves. So that's another way that I am hopeful that we are going to be able to connect with nature is by using all of her language and all of her themes and all of what she brings to other areas of our lives.
Right. And recognizing that that's our context, right?
Yeah.
Wendell Berry uses that word. And I mean, that's the earth, nature, the natural systems, they're literally our context, our home base, our whatever word you want to use. So not only are those metaphors really helpful and apt, but they're literally true.
Yes.
Because that's the system that we two are embedded in.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's how my father taught me. Just by he'd tell me to observe, just watch, just look, just listen. Lots of camping and all these different things outside. And it was all about, he's like, you will learn about yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
We could go on talking for a long time, but we've covered a lot of ground, and maybe this is a good place to come to a close and let people absorb. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much. It's always really a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you.
And, I encourage everyone to take a look at Chonte.com. Again, you can find her at CHONTEAU.com, Chonte McElveen. And thanks for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.